all right. How are you feeling this morning? Are you feeling good? I am feeling fantastic. Here's the motivator here. This is where we translate our words into action and where success is ours for the taking. And that you better believe. Let me just adjust my system here. Make sure we've got the sound working properly. It's looking good. It's looking outstanding. And welcome to you all. Here we are in a rather dreary London morning. Okay? But I'm feeling good. I'm feeling energized. I have had a good sleep. I've exercised. My body is firing on all cylinders. I'm ready for you this morning because this is the Motivator Show. This is where we translate our words into action and where success is ours for the taking. And that you have to believe because, my gosh, belief brings reality to the front. Belief brings reality to the front. And with reality, we're able to create a world of our choosing, not of other people's choosing. Oh yeah, we're going to get deep today, truly deep, because the theme of today's show will be the Jamaican Republic. Question mark. Let's look at this, I think. But before we get there, I want to first of all thank Ian King of GalaxyAfui.net, who's taken us from night to day. Long may his outstanding works continue, and appreciation to the GalaxyAfui.net management. I also want to give a big thumbs up to past contributors to the show. You have all, I've reviewed some of our earlier recordings. You have all been outstanding and truly inspiring, truly engaged people in ways that I cannot understate to you. Well done. You've underscored the purpose of these podcasts, these shows, that is to engage, to motivate. So these words are translated into action. So you're not sitting there passively. You are acting, you're responding. Yeah? You're acting, you are responding. That's what we want to achieve. These are empowerment shows where we raise your energy levels so you feel able to affect the changes in your personal community's life. Oh yeah, that's the purpose of these shows. Now, of course, I want to give note to the continual evolution of this show, okay? Now, as many of you will be aware, we transmit via a number of platforms simultaneously. And let me put it on the screen. So now we're going out, of course, live on GalaxyAfui.net, an outstanding African-centric empowerment digital radio station. Long may the management continue their outstanding work. GalaxyAfui.net. And if you ever listen to them, I recommend listening to them from time to time. But of course, we're here live on YouTube on the Motivator Show. Please don't forget to give us the likes or the thumbs up or subscribe for free. Okay? That helps the algorithms. It helps YouTube to find us from the millions of YouTube viewers. Yeah? We're also live on Facebook, again under the Motivator Show. I commend Facebook as a platform for you. Please, the thousands of you who are connected to the Motivator Show business page, continue to connect your friends and families. Please do so. And of course, you'll see the preview on Instagram and TikTok. Again, Instagram under the Motivator Show, but this time it's the underscore between the Motivator, underscore between Motivator and Show. The underscore Motivator underscore Show. On Instagram, on TikTok, it's the Motivator Show. You see the preview on TikTok. An excerpt from each show will appear both on Instagram and TikTok immediately after the live broadcast. And again, we also transmit audio via Mixcloud. Again, the Motivator Show. Mixcloud, an outstanding platform for you to utilize. Purely audio, but an outstanding platform. And Next Strong will be transmitting live via the Motivator Show website. And likely that will also be transmitting live via Instagram as a pilot project. And there'll be other platforms that we will transmit live to extend the Motivator Show universe. And the hundreds of thousands of you are now across all the platforms who are now connected to the show. We appreciate you. I'll give you a big thumbs up. We appreciate you. We appreciate you. Again, if you are online, okay, please subscribe for free. Give us the thumbs up. The thumbs up is most critical. And share links to this show with your friends and families, okay? Please share the links to this show with your friends and families. It is absolutely critical to spread the word. If you're satisfied with the content, why not share it with your family and friends? Please do, because we will make the difference. Working together, we will make the difference. Remember, I'm saying to you, if you want to go fast, you do it alone. Yep, do it alone. If you want to go far, we do it together. That's the only way forward. Doing it together. Okay? The hyper-individualism that pervades our community is anathema. We should not encourage it. Okay? We should not encourage it. Okay, one moment. Got something on my screen. Let me just take care of that little matter. Where is that coming from, I wonder? Okay, let's try this out. Oh, yeah, there we are. I've solved that. There you are. So let's move forward. Again, a thumbs up to past contributors. And I want to give a big thumbs up to Selena Carty and Paul Chambers, okay? Selena Carty, of course, or Black Poppy Rose. Wasn't she outstanding? And her commitment to the cause is unwavering. I give a big thumbs up to Selena Carty. Okay, I really want to appreciate them. She represents the best of us, most certainly. And of course, a big shout out to Paul Chambers of the British West India Regiment Heritage Trust, or BRIGHT, as he likes to call them. Again, a commitment to our fallen heroes and heroines, okay, of past battles, past wars, which in many cases still continue. I give praise to you. Long may both your work in collaboration. Remember, we want to go far, we do it together. In collaboration, long may you go forward and honor our heroines and heroes. Long may that continue. Well done, Selena or Black Poppy Rose. Well done, Paul Chambers of the get us right, the British West India Regiment Heritage Trust, or BRIGHT. Well done to you both. Well done to you both. I also want to give a quick shout out before I get on to the most important lifestyle messages. I want to give a shout out to the wonderful contributor that we had on prior to them. And that's, of course, Come to Namibia. I want to give a big shout out to the diasporan African based in Namibia, Kalanji, and his wonderful wife, okay? It's clearly obvious that Namibia is an opportunity area for Africans worldwide. It's quite clear that Namibia is a place to visit. It's safe. The people are living in harmony. Yep, it's safe. If people are living in harmony, yes, I emphasize those words. Yeah, let's visit Namibia. Let's have a look. Yeah, if you've not been to Africa before, why not visit Namibia? Yes, the other countries are wonderful. I hear the Ghanaians, I hear the Nigerians, I hear the Sierra Leoneans, I hear you, I hear the Kenyans, I hear you. But just give Namibia a little space, no? Let's let's have a look at Namibia. Yeah, an investment opportunity, a leisure and holiday, a vacation opportunity. Let's have a look. Yeah, a place for our children to grow and flourish, to thrive. Let's have a look. Yeah? Why not have a look? Let's have a look at Namibia. Well done to Kalanje and his wonderful wife. Okay, and of course, remembering, of course, he pointed out that not only is he based there and his wife is married to a Namibian wonderful man, he also has this wonderful tourist company called Loomis Cultural Tours. And if you want to really have someone who recognizes you and will take care of you, why not go to contact Loomis to the Cultural Tours? And their email address, it's info@Loomis, Lumis, Cultural Tours, LUMISCULTUROURS.com. Loomis Cultural Tours, and I must make sure we get the spelling right on all future transmissions. Anyway, there you are. So it is a opportunity area, an opportunity. We should not allow the opportunity just to walk on by. Capture, hold opportunities. In life, there are only a finite number of genuine opportunities. I know you understand what I'm saying. I know you understand what I'm saying. So now, I now want to move on to the section of the show, which has been a permanent feature since I began the shows in 2020. Okay, and that's, of course, our lifestyle messages. I start this lifestyle messages from the premise that I am an elected official and I've seen the official figures which are in the public domain. So if in doubt, check out, verify for yourself. When he refers to people of African heritage or Asian heritage, particularly from the Indian subcontinent, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and the neighboring countries, we all share similar rich cuisine. I say rich, I mean rich in nutrients, but so rich that they can and often are proving harmful. Yes, when looking at the typical public health diseases such as diabetes, hypertension or high blood pressure, cancers, lung conditions, obesity or overweight, we are in the upper quartile, in some cases so dangerously high that it should be considered to be an epidemic. And therefore, I have a moral duty to remind you to consider some interesting features about ourselves. Okay? Why do I do it? Because far too many members of our community are dying because of our lifestyle. Okay? Are dying because of our lifestyle. So I will give a big shout out shortly to the Countdown organization who responded to these lifestyle messages, and long may they continue their outstanding work. Okay, but I want to just begin, and I hope you are listening and listening in a receptive mind. I don't want to dictate to you because I always say I want you to consider. Okay, so let's bring it up on the screen, shall we? I want you to consider, and let me just put it this way here. There we go. I want you to consider the amount of sugar and salt that you ingest every day, you consume every day, you eat every day. I want you to consider the amount you're consuming. Why? Because there's a clear causal link to the overconsumption of sugar and diabetes in the communities. I'm going to say it again. There's a clear causal link between the overconsumption of sugar and diabetes. And diabetes pervades at least 40 to 50%, and possibly in some cases more, of our families. Yeah? I'm reminded of a speech given by the Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, Professor Hilary Beckles, when he noted even in his own family and family network the prevalence of diabetes and the debilitating impact diabetes is having on his family, but most certainly was and remained an epidemic across the Caribbean. Here in Britain, it is absolutely at dangerous levels, debilitating levels, causing far too many members of our community to have to take artificial insulin to maintain their sugar levels. I ask you to consider the amount of sugar you are consuming each day. I equally ask you to consider the amount of salt that you consume each day, okay? Salt is one of those ingredients we add to our cuisine in order to enhance the flavor of the food. But actually, it's disguising the flavor of our food. So that when we taste the food, we say, oh, where's the salt? Yeah? Because we are actually tasting the salt. We're not actually tasting the flavor of our food. And in both cases, I always recommend gradual reduction. Salt leads, of course, to the hardening of the arteries, and therefore resulting in the heart having to pump harder, more intensely. And that intense pumping, of course, leads to high blood pressure or hypertension, the clinicians will say. And hypertension, high blood pressure in our community, it has dangerous levels, debilitating levels. I ask you to consider the amount of salt that you consume every day. In the case of sugar, I no longer buy sugar from the grocery store. In the case of salt, I no longer buy salt from the grocery store. Whenever I see a recipe which includes the addition of salt, I do not add salt. Yeah? I do not add salt, but I have gradually reduced the amount of sugar, gradually reduced the amount of salt in my diet. Gradual reduction. In the case of sugar, it took 10 years, can you believe it? Because I still retain a sugary tooth. You know? Even though I'm looking at the sugar on my screen, and I've got mouth water being generated, I'm still psychologically responding to sugar. But my will, my iron will, says I will not take in additional sugar. I'll make myself very clear about that. The iron will says I will not do so, despite the fact at another part of my brain, I'm responding to the presence of sugar. But my iron will says I will not do so. And that's what's important. You've got to develop your own iron will not to consume this sugar, not to feel the need to add salt to your cooking, okay? Your iron will. And if in doubt, and if unsure, speak to someone you love, you care, you respect. Talk it through that person. Go to your GP even, your doctors. Speak to those persons, and they will give you the support I am confident that you need to achieve your aim and chosen objective. Yeah? It is so important. I cannot understate how important these messages are, because the effect of just these two ingredients alone is indeed quite horrific. Far too many members of our community are diabetes or high blood pressure. The NHS alone, the National Health Service here in Britain, spends more than 20 billion, let me say again, 20 billion pounds in treating people with diabetes and salt-related conditions. Can you imagine? 20 billion pounds. But I equally ask you to consider the amount of carbohydrate that you consume each day. And carbohydrates often is derived from wheat-based products, or indeed from some root vegetables such as potatoes, yeah, or indeed yams. Okay, of course, those wheat-based products, proliferate our cuisine. Okay, and it is a challenge. But of course, what we do with the wheat carbohydrate, we store it. Okay, it is a contributory factor to our overweightness, but I'll get back to that in a moment. But you see it on screen. The nutritionists recommend that we should consume no more than a fistful of food per sitting. There you are. A fistful of food per sitting. There you are. You see it on my screen. A fistful of food per sitting. Okay? I know it is a challenge. I realize. I get it. Don't worry. I get it. You know? You see the breads, yeah? You see the potatoes. You see the yams, yeah? And you see the pasta. In excess, like most foods, it is not helpful to us. Okay? It is not helpful. So I urge you to consider the amount of carbohydrates that you're consuming each day, because the overconsumption can lead to other conditions. But I also ask you to consider, and this is going to be a really important one for you all to take on board, the amount of fat that you consume each day. Now, fat, of course, is often one of those ingredients you can't actually see typically, but I put on the screen one of the typical sources of fat in our diet, and that's, of course, from meats. Yes, when you see the white strips of so-called meat in the meat, it's fat. That is not the meat, it's not the flesh, it's fat. That's stored energy in a biological form. It's stored energy, yeah? And our bodies believe when you consume it that you're trying to store energy for a rainy day. What's it do? It stores it, of course. So you see people, many people in our community, both men and women, with these bloated shoulders, these bloated chest, these bloated abdomens, and these bloated thighs, and of course, those bloated bottoms, or buttocks if you like. Yes, it's fat. And it has a debilitating impact on our overall health and well-being. I'll put it on the screen in that form, just for you all to see it. Because once it's cooked, you don't actually see it like this, okay? It becomes covered by the colors of the ingredient you've added to your food. But that is the fat. And that is what we're storing in our bodies. Because that is its purpose, isn't it? To store in our bodies for a rainy day. But you see the outward expression of the fat by our bloated bodies, our obese bodies, yeah? And of course, the impact on our veins, our arteries, is equally as profound. You see on screen an artery which is partially blocked by fat, yeah? And carbonate, hardened carbonate. In other words, this is where the carbohydrate become hardened, okay? Yeah. This is the impact. It reduces your blood flow. Very often when you hear people with heart conditions, it's a direct causal link with reduced blood flow. This is what it looks like on the insides of our bodies when you have reduced blood flows. This is the direct causal impact on our diet and our lifestyle, what it has on the insides of our bodies, yeah? You can't see it typically, but this is the impact. The last ingredient I would give note to, of course, is starch. Yes, our principal source of starch is rice. And of course, we add starch to these wonderful cakes and pretty things we like to give to children. Yeah. But let me return to the rice. Look, I hear the West Africans. Yes, I hear you. The jollof rice. Yes, it's starch. Yes. I hear the Caribbean. I hear the Jamaicans. Oh my God, I hear them so loud. Oh Lord. The rice and peas. It's starch. The overconsumption of starch is killing us. Yeah? It's killing us. No more than a fistful of food, yeah, per sitting, yeah? No more than a fistful. We can have a big salad bowl, yeah? But this sort of stuff, yeah, no more than a fistful. We eat far too much starch. Far too much. And you see the effect it has on our communities, yeah? The bloated bodies is a direct causal link between the overconsumption of sugar, salt, carbohydrate, fat, and starch, and the physical appearance of our community members. Yeah. There are awards here in this part of Southwark. I live in London, and where the majority of children who are African children, African heritage, are overweight, which is direct causal link between their overweightness, their obesity, and of course their lifestyle and food consumption. Yeah. So we need to modify our behavior, our habit. I talked about my iron will to resist the temptation of sugar. Yeah. This, I ask you together, we can all together create our iron will to resist the temptation of these foods in these overconsumption of these foods. I don't say stop, I say it's the overconsumption. You can, of course, stop buying and consuming additional sugar and salt without a shadow of a doubt, but I recognize that others are challenging. Okay? It is profound, isn't it? Because it asks you to take a inward inspection, yeah? Introspection, if you like, okay? To consider yourself and its impact, an example you're giving to those for whom you have guardianship. And yes, here's examples. Here's real life examples on people who are overweight, of which they've consumed excess calories, okay? Yeah? Excess calories. And this is what their bodies look like. And yours may look like a more profound or approaching what these bodies look like on screen. Do you want to really look like this? We can together do better. Remember, if you want to go far, we do it together. If you want to lose weight rapidly, you do it by yourself. Don't talk to anyone. But if you want it for it to be a sustained, long-term resolution, we do it together. Okay? Do not shame people because they look like this. We've got to help them, love them, and help them. So we together can do better. I know you want better for yourselves. Look at this. Oh my gosh, yeah? That is the result of not thinking through what we're eating. Now on screen, you can see what the nutritionists, the doctors, the experts recommend. We should consume far more fruits and vegetables. You can see the beetroot, the lettuce, yeah? You can see the cucumber, the tomato, you can see the bananas, the oranges, you can see the cherries, you can see the orienga, you can see the pears or the pumpkin seeds, you see the cherries, you can see the grapes, dark and green grapes, yeah? You can see the papaya, you can see the lemons, yep? You can see the beautiful food, you can see the lemons, oh my gosh, beautiful pictures here. This is what our bodies crave, because on the screen, what I've described contains all the nutrients you need to live as a human being. Okay, and if you are compelled to eat the meat, it should be no more than a 2 or 3% of your total nutritional intake. What you see on screen is what you should be consuming. The wonderful avocado. I love the avocado. Oh my dear. Yeah? It is beautiful food here. This is what you need. This is what your body craves. This is the beautiful food. Yeah? This is the beautiful food. That is what your bodies crave. See the beautiful oranges, the pumpkin seed, yeah? The orienga, the melon, oh my gosh, yeah? The celery, oh, wonderful. And of course, the experts encourage us to drink appropriate water each day, amounts of water each day. They reckon, I'm told, between 2 to 3 liters. It does vary, depending upon your height and your mass, okay? But it does vary. But drink at least 2 to 3 liters of water, and some of it will be in your food anyway. It ensures you maintain a healthy body. We are more than 70% water. Therefore, water is life to us. Please, if you're not consuming water each day, you should. There's my water. Yeah, you can hear my water. I'm going to have some water right now. It's life. Water is life. I put a little lemon or something like that in, or okra sometimes, as the inspired diabetic would have recommended to us. Oh yeah, absolutely. Water is life, okay? Between 2 to 3 liters. But I always recommend speak to an expert. I'm providing general advice. Speak to a real expert. He or she will give you the professional advice that is tailored for you. I repeat, they will give you the professional advice that's tailored for you. Mine is general advice, okay? This is the way forward. This is the way to enhance you, the person, the human being. Now on screen, the other part of all this, not only are you eating well, not only are you drinking well, you've got to exercise well as well. It is not enough. It is not enough. I'm going to say it again. It's not enough to do what I've said previously and not exercise. Exercise is life. With the weights, with the running, with the press up, running up and down the stairs, yeah? Exercise is critical to us as human beings. I wholly commend exercise to you all. It is important for us to exercise. I cannot stress this enough. You cannot do what I've suggested earlier on and not exercise. And I always recommend, if you can purchase a personal trainer, yeah, do so, okay? But if you can go to a gym, yeah, absolutely do so. But I've found if you come together with your family and your friends, your associates, and you exercise together, it becomes a far more meaningful experience. I commend exercise to you all because exercise is life. Just like the water, exercise is life. If you don't exercise, you're telling your body you're winding down and leading to death. You're telling your body you're winding down because you're preparing to die. Do you want to die? No! You want to live. There's so much for us all to live for. I commend exercise to you. But I can't say all what I've said so far and not remember that it's equally important to take care of your mental and spiritual health. It is so crucial to you all. I commend you all. I commend you all who've already taken those steps. But if you're unsure about your mental health, speak to whoever you have the greatest affection for, respect for, about how you're feeling. And I'm sure such a person will help you to go along and receive the professional advice that you are deserving of, okay? They will provide you with the support you need to receive the professional advice you need. And of course, as Africans, of course, we are truly a spiritual people. We must take care of our spiritual health. Whoever is your spiritual advisors, I recommend you speak to that person regularly about how you're feeling, about your spiritual health and your energy levels. Okay? Remember, your spiritual health encompasses the holistic approach to health and well-being, mind, body, and soul. I commend you taking note of what your spiritual health demands of you as a human being. It is such an important aspect of who we are as human beings. And if in doubt, seek out professional help. Okay? Remember, the whole purpose of these shows is to translate our words into actions. And of course, success is ours for the taking. I hope all that makes sense to you. But I say all these words not because I gain some personal grandizement or I have some financial interest, because I've seen the impact, the negative impact of us not taking care of ourselves. And the impact is profound. It is profound. But there's a group of Africans who live near where I am, here in South London, who've come together in common aim and common purpose, who demonstrate why I do these shows each week. Remember, success is ours for the taking. I want to commend and applaud the Countdown organization, a wonderful organization of Africans who have come together in response to these calls. And together they are exercising. Amongst their numbers, they have nurses and doctors even. Can you imagine? Africans have come together in common aim and common purpose. What I'm going to do, I'm going to play you a short recording of them exercising, demonstrating, working together. We can make meaningful changes in our personal lives, in our families' lives, indeed, in our communities' lives. Praise be, praise be.
Famous. Hello, 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 hello. on leave. Me self get one life on leave. Why we no go use am gladdy and enjoy the time. Palava no dey finish. Time me no dey wait nobody. Now why I dey try for always get am nice every day and night. This one way we all friend we safe, not nobody own. You wanna eat with you much, we go down you belly, now you young. And the balance where you go die left, now all the money on. So why for the pity you say for? Tell the motor car where you let buy 'em. If you see finance where you call it bilam, oh. You meet up woman where you let yanam. And if you let the man, I for keep 'em. Want them more. The food where you feel for eat some for eat 'em. That fine la power where you let na for buy 'em. And tie 'em more. And if you baby love you back love 'em. But if you love them all now you na for left 'em. Want them more. Cause nobody know waiting tomorrow old. So every day I feel like I'm old. I've seen enjoyment say oh, I'm forget for yourself. Nobody love you but yourself. All the best for yourself. Now where are you? I'm with you, the one that party. We smile away. Oh no, nobody take me away. Enjoy away. We smile away. Oh no. Every I see the hustle for the pay. They like na boku on us money they get. I for lose money 110. No to money, no to it. No money make butter man. As long as you get waiting you get. I for lose money 110. This one we all feel we safe now. Nobody own. You want eat what you want, we don't do belly now you young. Balance when you go down left now all the money young. So why for the pity you say oh. Tell the motor car where you let buy 'em. If you see finance where you call it bilam, oh. You meet up woman where you let yanam. And if you let the man I for keep 'em. Want them more. The food where you feel for eat some for eat 'em. That fine la power you let na for buy 'em. And try 'em more. And if you really love you back love 'em. But if you love them all now you not forever. Want them more. Cause nobody know waiting tomorrow. So every day I feel like I'm old. I've seen enjoyment say oh. Never forget for yourself. Nobody love you but yourself. All on the best for yourself. Now where are you? I'm with you, the one that party. We joy away. We smile away. Oh no, no matter what you take me away. We joy away. We smile away. Oh
Wonderful, huh? And examples of collaborative economics, a joint venture, understanding that if you want to go fast, you do it by yourselves. If you want to go far, we do it together, we collaborate, pool our resources with a common aim and common purpose. Yeah, anything is possible once you have a vision for that. Okay, once you have a vision. All right, well done, Countdown. And just before I go to the main theme of today's show, I want to give a big shout out to that wonderful organization. Well done, Countdown. I want to give a big shout out to this organization, the National Association of Black Supplementary Schools, or NAB. Brother Near, I hope you're listening. Long may you and the teachers, those adults who just committed to the next generation, continue your outstanding works. I give you the National Association of Black Supplementary Schools, or Saturday schools, or cultural schools. Now, have grown, both in London and all the cities across Britain and the world. Long may we continue to work collaboratively in this manner. So, if you have a child, if you are a guardian of a child, okay, or a young person who you believe could benefit from attending a supplementary school, a cultural school, or a Saturday school, whatever description you apply, contact the National Association of Black Supplementary School, or NABS. Their website address is www.nabss.org.uk. All right, or you can send an email to Brother Near at info@nabss.org.uk, or you can call him directly on telephone number, and if you're in the UK, it's 07958 348 558. Okay. Volunteer will happily take your calls, add you to their mailing list so you'll be aware of what's happening nationwide. But I commend to you the National Association of Black Supplementary Schools. They're an example of Africans coming together in common aim and common purpose, okay? And that's the whole purpose of this show. Collaborative economics, Only way forward. Only way forward. So, now let's get to the main theme of today's show. Now, today's show is particularly poignant because many of you will be aware, I was actually born in Jamaica, brought here as a child to Britain, whilst Jamaica was still a colony of Britain. Okay. Interesting, of course, that Jamaica over these decades has continued to evolve. But there's some aspects of Jamaican life that has not evolved, okay? We need to think about the future of Jamaica. Just like, and it's not in any way suggest Jamaica is better than anyone else. But I think of Nigeria, I think of Ghana, I think of Kenya, I think of Uganda, I think of Zimbabwe, I think of Namibia, I think of Angola, and I could go on, Ethiopia, Eritrea. We've got to consider the future of our nations. I use the term our nations deliberately because there are millions of Jamaicans who are living in destitution and are looking for hope. They're looking for those who've had the advantage of education and economic empowerment, embellishment, okay? To create an environment in which all Jamaicans can share in the benefits of our oncoming economic life, okay? But there has to be some fundamental change in the structure of Jamaican society. Not unlike Sudan. You remember our discussion about Sudan. And for this reason, we had a series of shows which focuses on Jamaica because Jamaica is considering, in fact, is going through the process to prepare itself to become a republic, or at least a different arrangement to the current arrangement in which the monarch of Jamaica is the same monarch that sits here in London. Quite frankly, that's ridiculous, if I may say so. In fact, I've said it. It is ridiculous. That has to change. And I'm sure even the monarch here in London would agree. That's a bit of an anomaly here. But it's up to the people of Jamaica to effect these changes. And of course, we're now relying upon politicians and others to bring these changes about in response to what is a clear national cry for change. Change both in structure, which starts with the constitution, social structure, economic priorities for Jamaica. And for this reason, I've had a series of shows where we looked at a monarchy, but an African-centric monarchy. Republicanism, but which type of republicanism? Strong presidents or not so strong presidents, A parliamentary democracy. We need to continue to explore. We need to explore. But in order to do so, it's not enough for us just to talk amongst ourselves. Why don't we get some of the best minds in the community to speak to us on the subject, to stimulate our brains, yeah, our thought processes, so we think even more deeply about the subject. So let's see if my guest, let's see if my guest is around, and let's see if I can bring my guest in. Let's see if I can bring my guest in. Let's see if this works first time. Oh, it has worked. Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear us all right?
Good morning, my brother, and do not deceive the listeners. You're prepared very carefully for me to be here.
No. I'm laughing already. Come on now. You are a great mind. Cecil
I hear you.
Good. You are a great mind. And why do we need great minds? Could great mind enable the others, those of us? You stimulate us to think deeply, to think not simply in our sort of singular way, but in a multitude of ways about the subject matters. Okay, and this is a really important subject. The next phase of Jamaica. What should its arrangement look like? Its future constitution look like? Okay, so I see this as being of mission. It's mission critical to us. So Cecil, I know you because you and I have been around for a little while now. So I know you from time. Okay. So I don't need to say much more on that particular subject, but I am to say to people that Cecil Gusmore is one of the most thoughtful human beings that I've ever encountered. Okay, and I'm therefore able to commend his thoughts on the subject of the form, if or whatever form, of constitutional changes Jamaica makes. Okay, a former lecturer in the University of the West Indies and here in London. Okay, on history, and someone who I think we should pay attention to. And I know that there are quite a number of you out there in the world who listen carefully to the thoughtful insights of Cecil Gusmore. Good morning to you, Cecil. How are you feeling this fine morning?
Good morning, my brother. I'm feeling quite well, thank you. I haven't been out walking as I sometimes do, but all is well. And it's raining a bit, so yeah.
I've always found, though, Cecil, the best time to go out to exercise, it's when it's raining, when it's really cold, you see. Because if at the end of the exercise you're warm and you're feeling contented, you know you've exercised properly.
No real disagreement there. We'll definitely walk in the rain.
Okay. Now, I know you, but my listeners do not know you, okay? And what I want to do is my open question to you. This is a way for my listeners to get to know you and understand what motivates you. And we can talk about your professional qualifications and others, okay? So, can you, Cecil, share with my audience a person or event that has shaped your life, it's been most impactful? A person or an event?
Okay. I mean, I think it's as well to be a little bit biographical. And so, like you, I came to Jamaica actually in my teens. So I would have been a little bit older than you, but it was probably after you came. Because I came in 61, and it sounded like you came earlier. So I was already in my teens, and therefore substantially formed in Jamaican terms. I was familiar with federation, been through that and the whole of the referendum. I come from rural Jamaica, and the scene was actually seriously politicized between the PNP and the JLP, and one understood and participated in all of that. In addition to that, I was in the British type education that we have there. And so even though I was very bad at exams, I'd actually already done and failed O-levels when I came here. So I was clear about what I wanted to do. In addition to that, I was, when I arrived here, a serious Christian, born again, baptized, and actually ready to be a missionary. And when I looked at further education, further educating myself, to be a Baptist pastor and perhaps missionary was my ideal. So my parents and two siblings, family of five, already in the UK, last one to arrive. 10 years took us 10 years to get here. Not an unusual story.
Mm-hmm.
And I then had to get on with my life. Remember, I'm in my mid-teens, so I'll get educational qualifications, work,
Mm-hmm.
all of that stuff, which I proceeded to do. So that coming from Jamaica in 1961, the year before independence, was
Yes.
absolutely the crucial event in my life. Rejoining family, separated from my father for 10 years, from my mother for maybe 5 or 6 years, and so on. Absolutely crucial. And then discovering England, which I knew from Shakespeare and Jane Austen and Dickens and all of that, but had
What that thing is?
but but had absolutely no idea about.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so a number of things happened. One is that there was a library, and a good one, quite close to where we lived in Neasden. And so, unlike in Buffalo, where I came from, where there's a little library, but absolutely next to nothing in it, and certainly nothing of significance, the books that in fundamentalist Christianity they critique, Darwin and all of that stuff, and Marx, there they were on the shelf. And so I proceeded to read the stuff that the fundamentalist pastors in my background and myself had been denouncing. You don't see apes changing into men,
Mm-hmm.
and so on. You know the standard critique of fundamental critique of evolutionism. And before long, I came to the view that the enemies of the theoretical enemies of Christianity were actually on sounder ground theologically and historically and archaeologically, all of those areas, than were the Christians. And so by the time I was 18, I was abandoning all of the fundamental religious tenets of my life,
Interesting.
and I haven't returned. So I don't believe in any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Importantly, also,
Mm-hmm.
since we're about to talk about monarchy,
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in Jamaica. Repeat, I was born in 1940. Sorry, 1944. You should
Okay.
get that right. born in 1944. So two key things happened, possibly three, in relation to monarchy and being in the empire.
Yes.
One of them was that I was a child in Jamaica when the Queen, who just died, Elizabeth II, was crowned.
Yes.
So I had the coronation experience, and it was a strange thing. They took us into a local park and they gave us bread and sugar and water, and we sang the songs that they had taught us, right? And then a few years later, in 1955, that was the tercentenary year of Jamaica being under British rule, being a British colony. And we
Yes.
celebrated that. So they taught us the song, and Princess Margaret visited. So she is in the song where they talk about 300 years progressing, 300 years professing this our loyal British colony, and Princess Margaret sailed the sea to come visit Jamaica, and
Yes.
all of that. And they had us lined up. I
Yes.
was at school in Kingston, in Highgate at the time, and they took us to Kingston and had us lined up while Princess Margaret and this long procession went by. So it was real. The only other thing, the Queen also came either while I was there or shortly after. I think while I was there, and they built the Queen's Highway. So those were the only tangible benefits or non-benefits of being British. And the other thing is that in 1956, when half of Britain was up in arms about the British escapade in Egypt over the Suez Canal,
Yes.
my pastor, who was also my teacher, he ran a school in Buff Bay, gathered us together and said, Britain has entered this war, not a word of criticism of the war, and told us that some of us are already or will shortly be ready, and maybe we'll be volunteering to fight or be nurses.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, 1956. So we were both founded in that colonial consciousness, and
Mm-hmm.
also there were elements the counter elements were already in my head. I knew about Marcus Garvey. Men used to discuss him
Mm.
on the streets of Buffet as I was a child, and so on and so forth. So when I got to the UK, all of that Christian fundamentalist confusion was in my head, and all of that monarchism to some extent was in my head, and even pro-Israeli stuff was in my head, because the fundamentalism thing goes with Zionism, and so all of that had to be thought through and
Mhm.
thought out of,
Yes.
and my life since then has been about reconstructing my consciousness and my social and life practice. Um, Now, you asked, I think,
Mm.
how I came. I'm not sure if you asked that yet, although it's on your list.
Before you do,
Yes.
you've given us a real insight into your thought processes and how you've formed an opinion that the initial information you're receiving clearly, it was contradictory. Okay, and what I believe you're saying is that your early experience of what the propaganda you were exposed to allowed you to look at the propaganda and see it for what it is and develop your own worldview. And this has shaped your political view and your social view. Would that be
Yes.
right? Right. Okay.
Broadly, yes, and also I'm coming to terms with what Britain was, and coming to terms with being a developing left winger, because I was never going to be a right winger. Black people can't be right wingers properly in the, well, they can be, and there are some, and there's an increasing number, but
Yes.
um, being right wing didn't seem like a viable or moral or
Right.
ethical alternative.
Yeah.
So the task was how to be consciously black,
Mhm.
one, and how to be consciously left. And that, if you like, has been my life project, combining those two things.
I get that, and thank you because it's very clear now. So tell me them. 'Cause you're a lecturer, okay?
Yes.
Um, um,
In my previous life.
in your please, don't do that just yet. No. What is Caribbean Studies, your chosen paper to lecture in the University of West Indies and subsequently here in London?
All
Why
right.
Caribbean Studies?
Okay. It's in a way very simple.
Okay.
I've only got one degree, which I got from Leicester, finished in 1970.
Mhm.
And then by that time, my problems with how to do exams had been solved. So I actually got a reasonably good degree. And so there was no question that I wasn't going to do research.
Mhm.
And there were lots of possibilities. I wanted to stay in Leicester to do something combining political science, which is my immediate background, and sociology. The political science professor stood in the way of that happening, although the sociology people were open to it. And one of the people in that department recommended me for a philosophy MA in, I think, Warwick. I screwed that up because they asked me about Kant, about whom I know nothing. I could have handled almost every other philosopher, but Kant I hadn't done any work on.
Mhm.
So that was a disaster. But I applied separately to what was the Institute of Race Relations, which was then an academic institution very strictly. And the person who headed it was also a professor, somebody called Hugh Tinker, at the School of Oriental and African Studies.
Mhm.
So I came to London attached to SOAS and the IRR, very different entities. Stephen Landon revolutionized it
Mhm.
and made it what we came to be familiar with afterwards. So, and even though I'd learned, right, I had this Caribbean formation, but at university I learned nothing about the Caribbean. And so in 1970, I came to London University, combined with the IRR, to study things Caribbean. My initial idea was to do something on the way in which Caribbean nationalism emerges through the Caribbean novel.
Mhm.
But as I focused on that, my attention turned, I was a left winger, more to issues of class and class race resistance in the Caribbean.
Yes.
And I had money. Tinker had got me money from maybe the Goldsmiths Company for a year. And
Okay.
so I had a free year to do research on Caribbean formation, Caribbean historical issues, Caribbean cultural issues, and a second year during which I was still attached, but without any money. And so in the early 70s, I had a chance, an opportunity to educate myself in matters Caribbean, matters African, and to do it from a left-wing perspective.
Mhm.
And it is on the basis of those 2 years, full time, at researching our key aspects of our past, African, Caribbean, continental Africa, that I have since built. Because after that, I went to teach briefly at a place called Hammersmith in West London College. It may even still be there.
It is, yes.
And and then moved kind of into community teaching. So I did stuff in the 70s at Operation Head Start.
Mhm.
Pepperkai is still the connection there. And in the early 70s, somebody called Roden Gordon, who was running an entity called the Black People's Information Center, said,
Yeah.
Gutsman, why you don't come and work with me?
Mhm.
So off I went to work with them. And so I was, by 72, 73, solidly in Black community activity. And then the other dimension of my formation is that I met Ricky Cambridge,
Oh, yes.
who was editing, had started
Yeah.
the Black Liberator.
Yeah.
We had a conversation on the entrance to a meeting in the Anson Hall that was actually about how the West Indian, the meeting was about how the West Indian child is made educationally subnormal, Cord's book.
Yep.
And in that conversation, Cambridge said, brother or comrade, do you write? And I said, yes, I do. And that was the start of that collaboration between Ricky Cambridge, myself, Colin Prescott, and some other interesting and important. Incidentally, Ricky died in August in Jamaica, had a wonderful send-off and so on.
Can I ask you, just for the benefit of the audience, as you've studied some Caribbean history, are there maybe one example, maybe two examples of Caribbean history in which you are immensely proud of the strive and efforts of our peoples? Just for the benefit of the audience.
That's easy. A little bit complicated, but it's easy. I am proud to be part of the heritage of resistance which the Caribbean people created.
Absolutely.
We are better than anybody in the world at resisting enslavement.
Say it loud.
And our resistance didn't stop when enslavement ended.
Indeed.
If you look at the record, you will see resistance in every Caribbean territory from the 1830s through to the 1930s, when there was a region-wide revolt by the Caribbean people called the Caribbean Labor Revolt.
That's right.
And our connection with that, and that includes Haiti. So the Haitian Revolution, the greatest revolution in the whole of world history, believe it or not,
yes,
was ours. And I'm very proud to be, as an African human being, connected with that heritage.
Wow.
So that's one side. And the other thing, another big issue, is how creative we as African Caribbean people have been. Here we are, separated from a homeland, told that homeland had nothing and that we were there for nothing. And we knew that was a lie.
Yes.
Right. And so what our people proceeded to do was to construct a transformed, enriched African Caribbean identity in a place where we shouldn't have been able to do anything. They didn't teach us to read, so we had to learn that on our own.
That's right.
They told lies about Africa. They told lies about us. They told lies about who we were.
Yes.
They placed us in a hierarchy of humanity in which Africans were at the bottom.
Can you imagine?
And all of that had to be confronted creatively. The Europeans were able, when they thought about themselves, to think Shakespeare and Chaucer and Keats and all of that stuff. And the Indians were able to think about in ancient Hindustan, and the Chinese were able to think about ancient China. We were told that there was nothing in Africa.
Can you imagine?
Yes, and in
mankind.
And in the face, it's not just that we're the fifth of mankind. The point is that Europeans between the late 1700s and now conducted a process whereby they stripped Africa of its high civilization centers, especially the Nile Valley, saying that it was the people there were either white or red, but never black, and so on. And they did other things. If you go and look at Great Zimbabwe, they said that was built by Arabs who managed to go all the way down the Indian Ocean and 1,000 miles up into Africa and build Great Zimbabwe and leave.
Mhm.
And also in West Africa, that whole grand tradition that we call ancient Nigeria, starting with Nok,
Yes.
they said that the sculpture there, which is world famous, Benin and Ife, Ife and Benin in that order, that the thing was so good, the sculpture, the metal sculpture, that the people from Greece, who were the only good ones in the world, must have come from there and taught our taught our ancestors. That's the foolishness that we as a people, and not just the Caribbean Africans, it applies to Africans in the States, Africans, all of the diaspora, that we have to challenge. And we've done it via a whole string of intellectuals. We've done it via a whole series of musicians, religious formation, incredibly creative. And I'm 100% proud of my connection to that practically creative, self-healing and self-assertive tradition.
Reparation begins with self. Oh, yeah. Let me put this on the screen now. I'm going to make sure that your words resonate with people. Yeah. Again, I want to say that last sentence again. Just say it again.
I'm not sure what the last sentence
It's for the moment now. Resistance.
Oh, man, let's move on. People can. This is gonna be rebroadcast somewhere, isn't it?
Yes, rather.
Catch up with it then. Let's build on where we are.
You have the floor there. Okay. If I may now get to the core of the interview.
Mm-hmm.
Now, first of all, I want you to help my audience to understand, to distinguish a Republican state. Now, the difference between the American model of republicanism and the model practiced, for example, in Trinidad or indeed Barbados. What are the differences that, in some new form, just so that our audience can appreciate what's the difference between the American model and the model practiced in Trinidad, for example, in the Caribbean? Yeah.
All right. Mm-hmm. You will permit me, you'll have to.
Of course.
To approach it differently.
Okay.
There is, at the moment in the Caribbean, excitement around moving from the monarchy to some form of republic.
Yes.
Excitement generated by the move initiated by the current Prime Minister, MS Motley, in Trinidad, who's a bright activist and so on, woman. And it is her decision to move Barbados from the monarchy to some form of republicanism that's generated all this excitement in Jamaica. Mm-hmm. Because the history of that is that Jamaica, when it got independence in 62, opted for a very peculiar constitution. It's more difficult, for example, for Jamaica to get out of the monarchy than Barbados has. And I haven't researched that. I'm not quite sure why the monarchy is so deeply embedded in the Jamaican constitution, but it is. Mm-hmm. So importantly then, this debate, indeed excitement about changing constitutional form, mm-hmm. Is generated by something that I regard as misleading.
Okay.
And it is misleading because very little turns on the constitutional format of a state. And by that I mean the easiest way to see that. Now, incidentally, I'm not at all in favor of keeping the monarchy. And we in Jamaica should have got rid of the monarchy a long time ago.
Indeed.
What we mustn't tell ourselves and our people is that just abandoning the monarchy and going to a republic is a grand change from which benefits will flow.
Well said.
Because in the Caribbean, we know that Barbados has now gone to a republic, a democratic constitutional republic. But before that, there were other republics in the former British colonial Caribbean. So Trinidad and Tobago was and is a republic. Guyana is and was a republic. And even Dominica, which surprised me when I heard about it because I hadn't realized that it had gone Republican, are republics.
Mhm.
And outside of the British Caribbean, there are all of those territories are republics, excepting Puerto Rico, because of its peculiar connection to the United States of America. But everywhere else, Haiti, Cuba,
Yes.
Dominican Republic, and so on,
Yes.
are republics.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at them, what you will see is that there's a difference between Haiti and the Dominican Republic and Cuba.
Yes.
And Cuba is what it is, not because of anything to do with republic, but to do with the fact that inside of that territory, on its way to being a republic, it conducted first a war of national liberation against Spain, which it won, and then the Americans imposed their power on Cuba. And it took another 50 odd years for the Cubans to liberate themselves from the vestiges of Spanish power and from American US imposition through the Platt Amendment on how they run their business. That's what the Cuban Revolution of Fidel Castro is about. Now,
Yes.
that revolution transformed Cuba. It didn't end poverty, but it ended inequality, and it gave the people education, health, equal shared housing, and much more. Not that they didn't get any help from elsewhere. They got help from the Soviet Union, the Eastern Bloc, and so on. But it's very important that that revolution, which didn't involve a change of the constitutional order, remained a republic, brought about significant beneficial changes to the people at the bottom of the society, which had not occurred in either the Dominican Republic, certainly not in Haiti, which is one of the most oppressed places in the world,
Yes.
and the list goes on. If Cubans are better, if Trinidadians are better off than Jamaicans, it isn't because they're a republic. It is because they have oil and gas, and they're richer for that reason. Smaller population, enough oil and gas, and therefore, when you multiply it out, even though they're ripped off by imperialism, they still have more of a national product to distribute.
So let's go to the models then, the models of republicanism. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So having said that, it means that in a way, the models of republicanism don't matter. So, for example, you can have a republic in which there is an executive president. South Africa is one of those. So the president runs things. And you can have another model in which the president is really ceremonial, a bit like the Queen,
Yes.
where although the relationship between the Queen and Parliament is not understood, and the extent to which notionally the Queen is and the monarchy is powerful, right?
Yes.
The place is run by the Queen and King, the monarchy in Parliament, and so that's the structure of the monarchic democracy, if you like, in Britain. So even under monarchies, you can have very different models of how things are run, and the same applies to republics. And so people waste time and mislead themselves and ordinary folk by telling them that in and of itself a benefit flows from moving from a monarchic form of government to a republican form of government. Is simply not true. So what you have to address is the nature of the social order itself.
Yes.
And if you're interested in people benefiting, the issues then become, how is the national social product distributed, and how are the people at the bottom cooperating with themselves to control ownership and distribution. And also, and a big point, I think, from listening to you at the start of this, how you cooperatively organize to use scarce resources cooperatively. Now, us African Caribbean people have to remember that after enslavement, Our ancestors, yours and mine, my brother,
Hmm.
created a remarkable place that was the Caribbean. That
Yes.
was done by our ex enslaved ancestors. And
Yes.
they did it because they had solid conceptions of cooperation, of
Yes.
economic and social cooperation. So
Thank
land was cleared cooperatively,
you.
land was planted cooperatively, land was reaped cooperatively,
Yes.
um, land acquired by an ancestor was left to family. So there wasn't individual. There was sometimes there wasn't individual, bequest at death. The land belonged to everybody who was in the family. These are seriously African forms. And then it matters that we had burial societies. My granny was in one. All
Mm.
of her and her friends had grand funerals because they saved up for the funeral. All of them were in cooperative enterprises. There's a big cooperative enterprise bank in Barbados,
Mhm.
and that's the current effect of how ordinary people cooperated economically to
Mhm.
create well-being and to provide resource access for themselves. So we as Caribbean African people
Mhm.
have a whole tradition
Yes.
independently of the bigger things to do with how the economy is,
Mhm.
of helping ourselves to do real things. And if you go back to Jamaica now, one of the tragedies of that place is
Mhm.
that because being a peasant is hard work. You have to
Yeah.
get up early and you have to, work in the sun,
Yes.
or you have to organize to work early and then work out what you can do while sun hot and so on. And too many people saw how hard it was for their parents and grandparents, and now do it. I'm going to tongue or have migrated. So you
Yeah.
go to Jamaica now, and Holy Place, where you and I know
Mhm.
our people used to farm, and
Yes.
that is how they produced the
Yes.
livelihood for themselves and their children, you and me and our parents.
Mhm.
The land is fallow.
That's right.
Occasionally somebody leases a piece of land and plants some yam, and you see how much yam can come off of that little
Yeah.
little piece of place, but the rest of the land is empty. So there is all of that that
Mhm.
has to be addressed. It's in our past,
Mhm.
as well as we have to know that the existing system didn't change to our betterment after enslavement. And at that point, we'd have to know how white folk remained in charge of those states, how they restricted the right to vote,
Mhm.
and how they used their power over taxation to
Mhm.
make sure that roads were built to their places, not to ours, that roads to their places were maintained, and
Right.
how they ensured that taxation was regressive, that if you owned 1,000 acres, you got charged a farthing per acre, whereas if you owned quarter of an acre, you got 2 shillings or 10 shillings per acre as the tax.
Yeah.
So our ancestors, actually paid for the building of Jamaica, the railway,
Mhm.
the roads, all of that stuff was actually funded out of the pockets, taxation-wise, including a tax on saltfish,
Yes.
right? Um, and on kerosene oil. That
Mhm.
you tried living without those things. Actually, you could. But so, yeah.
Um,
So yeah.
you. Can I just interrupt here?
Mhm,
Really detailed overview
mhm.
on the different models of republicanism and their likely social impact, okay,
Okay.
or lack thereof in some cases. But I just note, I've just seen a special person who's just joined us for a moment, I'm sure.
Mhm.
And let me just bring this special person in, if I may. Or is here. There you are. I believe we've got Gareth Gilfillian, who is the chairman of the People's National Party UK.
Yes, I met the nice gentleman a week or two ago. Hi again, Gareth. Good to see you.
Professor Gotsmore, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Do you mind if I call you Cecil rather than by your academic title,
No,
Professor? Do
no,
you
I
mind?
don't have any academic title. Cecil does very well, and that's the only
Oh,
one that I have.
thank you very much.
And Gareth, thank you for joining us. Surprise and thank you. Of course, the issue of Jamaica and its road towards republicanism, I know, is very much in the minds of PNP UK members. I know you a few weeks ago had a debate on the subject, which was, I'm aware, extremely stimulating. Okay, and once I've got you here, and I'm sure you're only here for a few minutes, because clearly Cecil was provided with some useful context, both contemporary and historical context, which has been extremely helpful, and has also been able to delineate differences in the types of republicanism that different states in the Caribbean and Africa have pursued, but also noted that there are other fundamental social changes that complement the constitutional change that need to occur if it is to be meaningful for ordinary, in this case, Jamaicans, but ordinary Africans worldwide, I would assert. Let me put a question to you, and indeed to both of you at the same time. What other legislative changes would you recommend if you were a member of the cross-party constitutional committee, which is now considering changes to the Jamaican constitution? If you were there and you were able to make recommendations, okay, and I'll put you on the spot, Gareth, what recommendation would you make to that cross-party constitutional committee? Maybe an example, maybe just one. I don't want to open it up, but one. Then I'll go to you, Cecil.
Right. So that cross-party parliamentary committee that's considering changes to the constitution in Jamaica basically already concluded on what they want. And effectively, they want a retention of the status quo, with the exception that the Governor General would become a president. So I heard what Cecil was referring to previously regarding the various types of Republican status. And Jamaica would want the least one. As it stands now, the government, and I think the opposition party, our party, agrees with this as well. They want the least of those options, which is a republic in which the president has no power whatsoever. It's just a nominal position, really. Okay, now I am not after that. I mean, despite the difference between myself and my party, I think I would be after something which is more likely to represent a proper change in how Jamaican society is organized. I would prefer a constitutional change in which the president has some serious power. Now, republicanism for me is pretty important, only because, or mainly because, it's generally intended to be for the common good. It's not intended to be for any singular group of people. It's intended to be for the common good. That's one point. And the second thing is that the advantages of being a republic, or having a constitution that is based upon republican status, is that you can have entrenched in that constitution various fundamental requirements that are above change. They cannot be changed. They're fundamental to the desires of the people. It is fundamental to the needs of the people. And so, for instance, housing, education, distribution of wealth, health, that Cecil previously referred to, all those things will be entrenched in the Constitution in such a way that they cannot be, they're inalienable rights, as the Americans would refer to them. And so, therefore, what would I recommend? I would recommend that they abandon the current status that they have taken on, which is that Jamaica should be a republic with a nominal president, and instead Jamaica should become a what I call a full republic, with inalienable right entrenched in the constitution, and the president that is a check to the legislative branch of the government.
Very good, very good. And if I make sure I've understood what you've said, that is that you want to move to the, I think Cecil would agree, the more South African model, where the
executive presence.
Got that, okay. The inalienable rights are akin to, I have to say this, to the United States clauses, which gives inalienable rights to certain groups of people.
To own guns.
Okay, indeed, something like that. Indeed. Got it. I might ask you later on to develop those thoughts, but I want to go to Cecil. And thank you, Gareth. That's very useful. What's your answer to my question? If you were a member of the Constitutional Committee recommending changes to the Constitution, notwithstanding the current conclusion that Gareth has highlighted, what constitutional change would you make if you were a member of that committee?
Right. Like I say, my view is that very little flows specifically from constitutional forms.
Understood.
Right? Now, let's say that I'm a political radical. I do actually believe that, monarchy apart, Jamaica's constitution is particularly defective. I have objections to the current state of affairs regarding meeting foreign debt, which is a priority call on the exchequer. And stuff like that. But I think that Gareth would be in some difficulty because, especially with changes that happened while I was living in Jamaica or shortly after that, I think it's probably chapter 3 of the Constitution, fundamental rights of the citizens which were already there, were reinforced by those developments. Trevor Monroe and other people, I was in Jamaica at the time, led that move towards formally improving the Constitution in relation to rights. Now, so it's not that the Constitution at the level of fundamental rights is defective. The problem is how that stuff is derogated from. And side by side with a Constitution with very good defense of individual liberties, very good defense of individual property, and so on. If you're rich in Jamaica, nobody can do you nothing, right? You can go to court and get your rights against any entity, including the government. If you're poor, that's a different matter.
Yes.
And that place, which has, I repeat, not at all a bad constitution if we're talking about fundamental human rights and their defense. This is a state in which, in 2010, the state shot down on its figures 73 people, 40 out of them in the head, possibly 150, according to Mr. Siaga, 250, and then buried them, some of them, in a local cemetery. And when questioned on television, I was there, the representative of the state said it happened in a state of emergency, and in a state of emergency, the state's forces can do anything. And he repeated anything, right? Now, this is a place in which, despite all of the existence of those rights, and they are there in the Constitution, the police kill. The people will have more up-to-date figures than I. But there is a systemic annual slaughter by the Jamaica Constabulary of ordinary Jamaican citizens. There have been great scandals around it, Crawl, Brayton, whatever. And it's a long story. So it's fundamentally not about rights on paper. It's about how those rights are not violated by the state and the extent to which the state can violate those rights and get away with it, which they do daily. The police go and shoots people, and they say, they picked up a body, which they're not supposed to do. The person was suffering from gunshot wounds. They don't leave the body in situ so that it can be examined as a crime scene. Because I once heard on Jamaica radio, somebody talking about a crime scene in relation to a police shooting. And the policeman who was discussing with the late Mutty Perkins said, "How you mean crime scene? A police shooting a man?" And so if we're being serious, we mustn't deceive ourselves and others with regard to notions like constitutions representing the common good and notions like embedding in constitutions fundamental rights. You can do that, and the state and its agents have ways of derogating from that. The courts allow it. In Jamaica, that happens.
Oh,
Politicians allow it.
hold,
No politician holds
hold on.
police and soldiers to account, and so on.
Let me
So
ask a question.
the problems lie there, not with the Constitution.
Let me answer a question here in that case, and I think that
Can I come back on that? Can I please come back on that?
I'm going to let you, but before you do, I did want to ask this question. I want you to take this question into account, and this will help our dialogue to evolve. Let's assume your legislative suggestions were implemented to complement the constitutional changes. What impact on economic growth should Jamaican workers experience? And will Jamaica, therefore, become an African lion economy? Would you?
Okay.
So maybe Gareth, who I'm sure
Yes,
will have
ma'am.
views on that, should go first.
Okay.
Let me tell you something. Okay, first of all, in relation to the police and their performance in the past, what you were saying was fundamentally correct, and I made no excuses for their conduct whatsoever. They behaved under those circumstances in the late 70s, 80s, 90s even, were under extremely difficult circumstances. They were beyond control in many instances. And there's some very famous policemen, not women, famous policemen, who were famous for their brutality and the use of the gun.
Crime fighters.
Absolutely, they would be called crime fighters in the true sense of the word. They were nearly vigilantes, nearly. I said they wore uniforms, but they were nevertheless very effective in causing people to be confident in not only them but in their safety. The level of their effectiveness is questionable. I think it's the same level of effectiveness that the current state of emergencies have. When these people were present in one area, the criminals moved to another, and that's the same. That is the extent to which this state of emergencies now are effective. Total nonsense, total rubbish. Now, you are right. There are fundamental human rights that you referred to regarding provision of education. But one, for instance, is a provision of primary education, not secondary, not tertiary, but just primary education. When I refer to fundamental human rights, I'm not talking about security and things of that type. Those they are important. They are critically important. I'm talking about basic needs, housing, fundamental human rights regards housing, health. Embed those in the Constitution. Make it clear to any government that's in power that regardless of what platform you came to power on, you have to maintain adherence to that Constitution. So if the Constitution says that you have to dedicate a percentage of your budget towards housing or secondary education or tertiary education annually, then you have to damn well do that. You can't avoid it. You have to do it. Now, these are what I mean by embedding certain fundamental rights to housing, education, health, and other forms of social care. Embed those in the Constitution, and then you will find that there's a difference. And along with that, you have an executive president who is elected by the people, independent of either parties, but certainly accountable to the people. Now, I understand the need for quick transformation. I am as impatient as anybody. I also want the revolution. I really do, and I've always wanted the revolution. However, I'm also persuaded that we can use the systems as it stands now to progress our community. That transformation will not be immediate. It will not be immediate. There are so many other obstacles to overcome. But transformation, I think, to the fundamental human rights, to have those fundamental human rights embedded in the Constitution, such that our children have education from early years up until tertiary university, are critically important. But they're not there. They are not there. The government is only compelled to provide education for primary school children, and consequently then many children from secondary schools go out of school, they go missing, and that becomes a problem. Why? Because the crime rate goes up. The crime rate goes up, and when the crime rate goes up, you're right, the police steps in. A police state is basically declared quite close to a military state being declared. Why? Because of the widespread use of the state of emergencies, where the army are called in on a frequently, to police the streets,
Right.
where the current person in charge of the police is a previous general.
Yes.
He's a general. He's a general with the outlook of the army, of the military. So we don't really want that, and that consequently is, I mean, if I can have that rapid change, that Cuba was the beneficiary of.
Yeah.
Got it. We go with it.
May I just say
I'm with that. So let me just finish on this one on a quick note.
Okay.
The current constitution of Jamaica has not served Jamaica well since its inception.
Indeed.
It has not served Jamaica well. Why? Look at the Jamaican economy, look at Jamaican society, both of which have deteriorated. There has not been any growth in that Jamaican economy since its inception. In fact, it's gone the contrary. And there is no projection that suggests it's going to change under the current constitution. So what do we want to do? Do we want people to suffer until the revolution comes? Or do we want some sort of transformation, not only in what is provided materially, but in their thinking? Now, look, one final point that I say, Rastaman. Look at what Rastas achieved. Look at what Rastas have achieved in their thinking in Jamaica. Enough said. Thank you, what I said.
All right. I actually agree with you when you say that what you want to focus on is specific service provision like education, like health, and so on. So we don't disagree about that objective. The problem is that is not guaranteed by constitutions, and you could write that into a constitution till kingdom come, and the state of the economy would dictate what the government can or can't do. So if we look back at our history since the 50s, the Jamaican economy wasn't doing too badly. The man who ended up running Singapore rather well came to Jamaica to look at it.
Yes.
Things were going so well.
Mr. Lee, yes.
What has happened since then
Yes.
that are to do with politics, both the politics of the ruling circle and their connection to the US, and the way in which the Jamaican economy, for no good reason, was assaulted from the right, especially from America, in the 1970s, from which Jamaica had not recovered.
Indeed.
So you and I are old enough, or should be old enough, to know that Jamaican governments of both stripes have sought to do stuff around education and health, and they can't afford it because the economy is in economic trouble. And when they borrow, they are told by the IMF, whoever, you have to cut. And what they cut is the stuff that the IMF does not value: education, health, housing for the people. And as long as you stay within that framework, and that's not about constitution, it's about the politics of our connection to the international order, nothing can be done. And so it's for Gareth to explain why he thinks that the level of non-provision, some of the non-provision has been about rationalization. So there are fewer hospitals there, certainly public ones, than there used to be in my childhood. And while I was there, they repaired Kingston Public Hospital for a while. And that only happened properly because the two criminal gangs that control downtown agreed to work together and not kill each other and let the investments happen. So our situation is undoubtedly complex, but the solution, with respect, does not lie in a focus on the constitutional order. And I do not believe, right, you have not just South Africa, but France, where there's an executive president, where he can sack prime ministers and so on. What happens in the French economy is nothing to do with that. It's to do with where the French economy stands at the moment, what it's doing around investment, what it's doing around modernization, etc., etc. And those are the questions for the Jamaican people, not the constitutional order.
Interesting. You make some interesting and profound observations, and I know that Jamaican politicians will view this particular show.
Can I just say something about that? Jamaican politicians don't like what I say. I had a column in the Gleaner
Cecil.
Something like 7 months, an unheard of short time. And I don't think the explanation was that the politicians stopped it, but I had an experience with a particular politician, very well-known gentleman who I used to jog with at the dam. I wrote a column. I had a column in the Gleaner, and after one of those columns, he stopped talking to me. They only listen to what they want to hear, and you have got to be respectful when you express the opinion.
Okay.
Listen, they wouldn't want to hear what I have to say either, Cecil.
I just want to see them both. I'm just going to put this question to you both. I'm just conscious of time as well. So, my last question: what role do you envisage the diasporan Jamaican to contribute to the constitutional and economic growth of Jamaica? What can we contribute to help Jamaica to evolve, to become akin to Singapore? You mentioned Singapore just now, to become a true African lion economy. What?
I think it's difficult to envisage Jamaica as an African lion economy. It's actually very short of economic resources, and it's extremely badly organized.
Okay.
The ruling circle.
What change would you make?
No. Okay, the diaspora. What the diaspora can do is support the party that they prefer and put pressure on them to do what they want to see done. That's the first thing. The second thing is that diasporans, all of whom have clear connections back there, need to operate as individuals, form groups, relate to people who have returned, and get things done in the particular places from which they come, and so on and so forth. There's whole heap of rundown schools, there's whole heap of rundown churches, there's whole heap of types of education and provision that we could support from here and so on. I don't say that is the answer to the fundamental state of things, but I do say that if you're asking me what we can do, there's a lot we can do at that kind of level.
Perfect.
For me,
yes.
It's all again about the distribution of resources. Cecil, that's the fundamental basis of our argument: distribution of resources here, right? That is the fundamental basis of it. Now, the only reason why diaspora and the remittances are so important to Jamaica, is because the distribution of resources in Jamaica is skewed towards the very wealthy in every single way possible. Every single way possible. That's exactly it, and that's why the remittances are important to Jamaica, and that's how it will remain until Jamaica has a change of constitution, a constitution that is fundamentally intended to serve the purposes of all the people of Jamaica, not just a section of Jamaica as it was intended upon independence. Unless that is changed.
We have agreement, excepting that I can't understand why you're still holding on to the idea that is something to do with the constitutional form rather than the actual politics.
Because it's embedded. The way in which the society is organized, the way in which the distribution of resources is organized in Jamaica now is based fundamentally upon the constitution that we were left with, that was designed for the purposes of maintaining the social order that prevailed prior to
South Africa, which is a much richer place than Jamaica, has all of those problems at the bottom of society, despite the fact that it has the constitutional form that you're talking about. All of the rights are embedded, and the ANC even has some things in its constitution and in various of its documents that talked about services to the people. None of that is happening, and so it doesn't depend on the constitutional form. It depends on the actualities of the politics. If we have neocolonial governments that remain allied to the worst aspects of the international order, and actually whatever they say are fundamentally operating against the interests of the people, we'll end up, whether in Jamaica with a monarchy or in South Africa with an executive president, with the people in exactly the same position. It's not about constitutional form.
Okay.
Let me give one example. A few years ago, in fact, about last year or the year before last, Julian Robinson took the government to court and won based upon their contravention of the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
No, I just said that any Jamaican who has money, the rights are there. So it's not about what's on the Constitution as a piece of paper. If you have the money, you can go and win your rights. It is that that the place, and it's not just Jamaica, is set in neo-colonial order, and the relationship about what happened with resources, the provision of services to people, gets cut by orders from abroad, which our leadership feel they're bound to obey. And they pay the money to debt, both domestic debt and foreign debt, because that's the first call on the Constitution.
Yes.
There's the answer to the question.
That's the first call within the Constitution, and so on.
There's the answer. There's the answer to the question posed, right? There's the answer to the question posed.
We should return to this on some early occasion.
Hold on. I just love your fire, no doubt. But we will find solution. In fact, so the solutions, and I've listened to you carefully, Cecil. Part of the reasons why you're here today, because I found your insight, quite intellectually stimulating. Because you're right, if I may say so, Gareth. Cecil, you've changed the Constitution and you've changed the model. That's right, but it's this implementation that's the issue here. Okay, and what I mean by that, just be really clear. We see that there are hospitals and schools being closed or become moribund in Jamaica because the government doesn't have the resources, because it's paying international debt as opposed to investing in the people. Okay, but I'm well aware that the gross national product of Jamaicans internationally is far greater than the island of Jamaica.
Yes, that's probably the case.
There's incredible wealth outside of Jamaica, but we're not investing in Jamaica. Yeah. And fundamentally, what's wrong with the Jamaican economy, in my assertion, is that Jamaicans externally are not investing in those services that would enable all the Jamaicans in Jamaica to get a good education, a good health opportunity for good health care, and of course, good employment opportunities.
We have to talk about the mechanism
for change. So,
we have to talk about the mechanisms for doing that.
Okay.
Because what Jamaicans currently do is assist schools, hospitals, whatever.
Charity.
They build houses. The capital gets tied up in concrete.
Yes.
And so, if we're talking about how, I agree with you that the diaspora could do stuff. But I repeat, first of all, they have to relate to those political parties and get them to do different stuff and to act differently. So that's about the nature of the politics, not about the Constitution. And then we in the diaspora have to think about how we go beyond what we presently do, which is invest in a house so we can go on holiday, or we support our families, or we support a school, in this or that place. A project in this or that place, and next to nothing changes because all of that is at the margin of the disaster.
Agreed. I'm just conscious of time, so I'm going to have to wrap up now, but I can see that we might have to get you gentlemen back again. I hadn't realised that it would be quite so fiery, but it's been intellectually stimulating. It is that debate that we here in the diaspora need to have. And if we are to effect changes, understanding the debate and the issues and the fundamental changes that we can contribute to will enable us to empower diasporan Jamaicans, like myself, for example, to look at Jamaica as opposed to many parts of Africa, which I often look at. But most certainly Jamaica is an important linchpin economy in the Caribbean. Okay, and it's a place that if we are able to enrich, to bring up the ordinary Jamaicans, the level of violence that is in Jamaica would not happen. If we are to make those changes, we've got to make it together. We need to come together and develop a plan. What I say? I was about to say a Mandela plan or a Manley plan, if you like, to change Jamaican society. Okay, that's what we need, but we've got to do it together. And I'd ask these intellectual classes to come together in common aim, common purpose, with the interest that we will seek and achieve a greater wealth distribution amongst Jamaicans, that the healthcare will be accessible by all, that we will take care of our children, and our children will come up to be strong and good husbands and good wives, or whatever description you wish to apply. And indeed, there's an appreciation of our religious differences, but there's a mutual respect for our religious differences and class differences. We need to share that vision. It is vision that will motivate people towards action. Gentlemen, I'm going to do a phase 2 on this, but next time I'm going to look to the future. I'm going to look and demand of you, and I'll invite one of my women as well to be with us, demand that we look to the future. What are the building blocks to build a better, stronger Jamaica? And I'm going to use the term again, to create an African lion economy, okay? The Asians can have the tiger economies. We can have the African lion economies. And that's the vision we need to capture and hold on to, and use that as our source of energy to effect the changes that we want, the social changes which are an absolute must if Jamaica is to survive as a viable economy in the future. Because it's quite clear that those who've held it in the past do not have an interest in its long-term viable future. I'll give the last word, if I may, forgive me, Gareth, I'll give the last word to Cecil. What would be your last words?
Well, my last word is that as you were saying, the discussion should be serious and it must continue. I'm ready to participate with you and Gareth and other African Jamaicans as to where we go in the future and how we do the going.
Mm-hmm. Well said, well said. I'm going to say to you both, thank you for what was a quite lively debate, but a necessary debate. I hope that, regardless, Cecil, I hope our politicians and others in Jamaica review this initial debate, but there will be others, and without a doubt, we have it within our grasp, within our gift, to create a Jamaica that we all will be proud of. It is within our gifts. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise, because that's just propaganda, this type of propaganda that's held our mind back and therefore manifest in reality. We have it within our gift to effect the changes that will ensure that our children's children will be proud of these efforts. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you very much, Cecil.
Thank you, Gareth.
Good to be with you. See you again soon.
Okay. Thank you. Blessing to you both. Wow. Now, isn't that something? You've heard the debate, yeah? And this is just the beginning of that debate. But without a doubt, we have the solutions. Jamaicans and others otherwise, everywhere, invest in our schools, invest in our healthcare, create job opportunities in Jamaica. Jamaica is a rich pool of people who work very hard. Yep, once they believe in you, they will work hard. Because they know working hard will bring and yield the results that they desire. We are not afraid to work hard. Okay? So there's real opportunities here. You've got to hang on to that vision to create the African lion economy. And what does it mean? A strong manufacturing base, a strong produce base, yeah? An economy that takes into account and is part of the technological revolution that is currently underway across the globe. A people confident, articulate, able to assert themselves on the international stage. Yeah? Oh yeah. It is possible. Don't let anyone say otherwise to you. It is not possible. It is probable. Once there's a will, there is truly a way. Praise be. Praise Jah, Rastafari, and bless assured. I say all that because I'm invoking the energies necessary to ensure consistency in our thinking is what will yield the results in the future. Remember, if you want to go fast, you do it alone. if you want to go far, we do it together. Praise be, praise be. So, now you've had a taste of that debate, we'll continue, okay? Next time, we're looking to the future. That's all we're going to discuss, the future, how we're going to build a better future. What can that future look like? We're going to look to the future. So you know what we're aiming at, yeah? You know what we're aiming at. And the objective, of course, is to build those schools, build those hospitals, build those manufacturing plants, extend our agricultural economy, yeah? Build our tourist economy where that's appropriate, okay? Yeah, ensure we have good, clean streets to walk on. Yeah, they're safe for all, not just for some. Oh yeah, that's the way forward. That is definitely the way forward. But before I go, I did want to give a few shout out again. A big shout out again to those of you who are willing to commit some of your time to help the next generation. Please consider joining a Saturday school, supplementary school, or cultural school, yeah, to help the young to develop, yeah. The young, you know what happened? There's a whole African saying that a child that is being dispossessed is likely to burn the village to feel its warmth. I'm going to say it again. A child that's been dispossessed is likely to burn the village to feel its warmth. It is incumbent on us as the adults, yeah, the elders, to provide an environment in which our children can thrive. Yeah, you know, to have a focus on children because they're the people that this debate is focused on. They are the beneficiaries of our efforts, our determination. They are the beneficiaries. So we always must remain child-centered. Okay? And I will always be child-centered. Okay? So contact the National Association of Black Supplementary School, put up on the screen very quickly. They are an outstanding organisation. Call Brother Near on 07958 348 558. And taking on board the comments made by my guest, Gareth Gilfillian, and indeed Cecil Gusmore, that if you are interested, you should join a political party. If you're here in the UK, look, I'm a Labour councillor. Let me just tell you straight up. I'm a Labour councillor. I'm a proud Labour councillor because we can effect real changes that are meaningful for not just some of the community, but the whole community. Similarly, I would recommend, if you are able to join one of the Jamaican political parties operating here, the Gareth Gilfillian is from the PNP, the People's National Party of Jamaica. Okay, join them. Yeah, Google, it'll come up with yourselves. Okay, anything is possible. The change that you want is possible. Because working together will ensure that you share the energy, share the workload, share the demands. Anything is possible. It's up to you. Remember, you want to go fast, go alone. Go together, you do it together. That's the way to do it. Do it together and you go far. Okay? The Motivator Show. This is where we translate our words into action and where success is ours for the taking, where there's no misunderstanding as to our intent. So, until the next strong, I remain the motivator. Spread the word. Give us a thumbs up. Remember, give us the thumbs up. Like our transmission. Spread the word. Share the links. Spread the word. I say to those of you on daddycfuri.net, until the next strong, I am the motivator. Praise be. And now, I'll now hand over to my opening and closing credits. Until the next strong, hey, stay strong. Hey, yeah.